An Ethiopian Airlines plane carrying 149 passengers and 8 crew bound for the Kenyan capital has crashed shortly after takeoff. There were no survivors. Well, correspondent Donald Quarter joins me live now in the studio. Don, you've been following this story really since we heard about it, which was a number of hours after it actually happened, which is another point. But what do we know? What is confirmed here?
Well, the latest thing that Ethiopian Airlines is reporting is that the CEO has arrived on the crash site, and he confirms personally that there are no survivors. Now, to put this into perspective, it's reported that citizens from 33 different countries died in the accident, the majority being from Kenya, Canada, and the EU. Now, this was one of Ethiopian Airlines' regularly scheduled flights, and the Ethiopian Secretary of Transportation did a press conference earlier today and told us all what the government knew at that point about what was going on. Let's take a listen.
The incident took place at 8:38 when the flight took off from Bole International Airport, and 6 minutes later it got lost in terms of radar surveillance.
Now, although the plane crashed only 6 minutes after takeoff, it took emergency services 2 whole hours to get to the site. Now, this is especially shocking because reports were saying that it only crashed about 50 kilometers south of the takeoff zone at the airport. One witness even told the BBC that the result of this delay was because the fire was so strong that people weren't able to approach the plane on the crash site. The office of the Ethiopian Prime Minister already reacted to this on Twitter. They said that they give their condolences to the families of those who lost their lives on this plane.
Don, the big question is, of course, now causes. What happened? Do we have any kind of... there's going to be an investigation, of course, but early stages of why this happened?
Yeah, well, that's another surprising detail. Hours later, and we still have no details available as to what caused this crash in the first place. It's unclear whether or not the pilot released a distress signal or how the airline was able to report these details to begin with when they had not even reached the site in the beginning.
It's a very new plane, by the way, Don, isn't it? Like, it's one of the newest models, so that's another aspect we have to bring in here too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually called the Boeing 737 MAX, and it's a new addition to the Ethiopian fleet, only from back in July of last year. And, you know, a lot of people are drawing parallels to the plane crash that occurred last year in Indonesia with Lion Air's model of the same plane. The
exact same plane?
Yeah, the Boeing 737 MAX. And just to give you a couple details about that, it was a very similar situation. The plane crashed in Indonesia only several minutes after taking off, and over 180 passengers were killed. Now, Boeing also reacted to that and to this situation. Back then, last year, Boeing issued a warning a year later about this model of aircraft, saying that the 737 MAX might have a tendency to do a nosedive against the will of the pilot of the plane. And Boeing Airplanes actually also responded on Twitter to this specific crash, saying that the company is aware of the accident and they're closely monitoring the situation.